This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Connor O'Gara standing by from Saturday Down South. Get to talk with him every couple of weeks here on Halftime. So let's head over to the McLarty Daniel hotline and welcome him in. Good afternoon. Connor, how are you today?
I'm doing well. You know, I was kind of sweating the Sam Pittman news and was very kind of anxiously awaiting some sort of decision, and to be able to get that yesterday morning, I'm sure you guys have had no shortage of things to talk about.
Yeah, well, it's basically been on one or two or three topics surrounding people's ideas and thoughts on Coach Pittman getting another year, at least another year, and then what the offseason has to look at, and not much on the FIU game and not much on what's coming up on Friday. So what has to happen with this team in the offseason, Connor? What do they need to do to get back to feeling like the program's going in the right direction?
It's pretty basic to say, but you got to get this offensive coordinator hire right this time. That's what this comes down to. And I said on these airwaves many times that I love the Dan Enos move. I was very much cold takes on that. I mean, literally freezing cold takes got me on that one. So it's pretty obvious. You got to get that hire right. You have to get that hire right, and you have to be able to figure out what you can do with this offensive line, because it was just not up to par. It was not up to an SEC level this year, and as a result, you wasted a valuable opportunity with KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders to be able to actually utilize their skill sets, and it's too bad. So you've got to find a way to make it work. I mean, players are going to come and go, and you've got to figure out what you have, obviously, but to me, that's really what his time at Arkansas is going to come down to. You're going to have a third opportunity to hire an offensive coordinator, and in all likelihood, it will probably be Sam Pittman's last. But at the same time, if this becomes a massive success, this would speak to the way that Sam Pittman is operated. He is the type of guy that is going to perform at his best when he is counted out, and maybe that's exactly what he needs next year.
Connor, it's rivalry week this week, and then you get championship games the next week. Go into the crystal ball. Tell me who the final four teams are going to be this year.
I still am going to stick with what I've been saying for a while. I think Washington is this year's version of TCU. They played in 7 consecutive games that have been decided by 10 points or less. They've been kind of playing with fire, more than people realize. So I think Washington is actually going to lose to Oregon, but Oregon's going to lose this weekend. So Washington is going to make the playoff, I think, even with a loss to Oregon, because Oregon's going to have 2 losses. And then I think Florida State is going to get in. I think Ohio State is going to go up to Ann Arbor and win that game. And I think Georgia's going to win the SEC championship and beat a red-hot Alabama team. But, yeah, it's kind of shaping up different than any year that I can remember, having every conference feel like it deserves a seat at the table and having a pretty good case for it. It's good for the national popularity of the sport. It just means that we're going to have some probably pretty intense debates about the playoff over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Do you think the Florida State losing their quarterback, how much would you hold that against them?
Not at all. Not at all. Wait and see what this team becomes, because look what 2014 Ohio State did. The very first year of the college football playoff, JT Barrett goes down in that game against Michigan, and everybody's saying Ohio State's done. And all Cardale Jones did as the third-string quarterback was come in and lead them to a dominant win against Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship. They decided to put Ohio State into the playoff over TCU, and the rest is history. So, to me, you can't hold it against Florida State when you don't know who they are. For all we know, they're going to go on the road and win in the Swamp by 28 points. And while Arkansas made it look easy at times to win at the Swamp, historically speaking, it's just not a place that you're supposed to go in there and dominate. So who knows? Maybe they're going to do that and then beat Louisville in the ACC championship. And then what, 13-0, Florida State is getting left out? No, that to me, it wouldn't make any sense, and it would be projecting. And I realize you're trying to get the best matchups possible. You're also trying to reward the best possible resume, and I think Florida State would have that if it wins these next 2 games.
Yeah, I know. I know college football is controlled by TV executives, but when it comes to the playoff, it can't be about what's going to get us the most ratings. It's got to be about what have these teams done on the football field this year. Let's go by record. Let's go by the stats that you're going off of. Not who would be favored over another team at all. I want to ask you about Kentucky, because people point to Kentucky for being patient with a coach so he can build the foundations of something. And every few years, there's been a couple of 10-win years for Mark Stoops, and then some goodish seasons, a lot of mediocrity. Last year, mediocre. This year, I don't think most people saw them dropping, 5 of the last 6. Is Stoops safe at Kentucky?
He's safe, but the approval rating is taking a hit. I mean, they're closer to building a statue of him than they are firing him. That I believe is the case. But here's the issue. Kentucky has changed its approach the last few years. It has basically said, we're going to buy an offense. They paid big to get my doppelganger, Liam Cohen, back as the offensive coordinator. And I actually think that the scheme has actually worked out pretty well for him this year if you've watched them play. But the issue has been Devin Leary has not been the player they thought they were getting in the transfer portal. And the offensive line is better, but it's still not exactly filled with a bunch of all SEC guys up front. And they have this group of receivers that's one of the most disappointing units in the entire SEC. So it's really hard to execute the offense they want to run. And so you're looking at it from that standpoint and saying, okay, well, we ponied up, as Mark Stoops infamously said after the Georgia game. You got your guys through NIL via the transfer portal, and this is the result. I mean, this is Kentucky's most disappointing season in 7 years probably. And you're left wondering, all right, what's the future? If we got that guy at quarterback in the portal, we're running the offense we're supposed to. We got a big-time running back in Ray Davis, and still this is the result. I think that's more so where Kentucky fans are frustrated right now.
Well, that might be the kind of offseason that Arkansas is about to have. I mean, in terms of spending money, NIL money, contract money for an offensive coordinator that's got a track record, truthfully. But that's what this has to be about now. I mean, you look at Missouri and Ole Miss, and we don't know what the valuations of these players and what they're making. We just know that the Grove at Ole Miss, the collective there, is part of the reason why they have the roster that they have. It's the same at Missouri. And Kiffin and Drinkwitz are in the same year, tenure-wise, as Sam Pittman is. But right now, Arkansas is behind both of those programs and pretty far behind them in terms of at least success this year. And it's got to be about, really, truthfully, Connor, it might sound distasteful to say it this way, but they got to throw money at offense. Because last year they rebuilt the defense through the portal. I don't know how much money was spent by that. You got to throw money at the offense and specifically at the offensive line. I guess it's a matter of how many linemen are available, right? It's not always – that's got to be part of it.
That is, and that's a tough place to go spend in the portal because if those guys are getting out into the portal in the first place, you're kind of wondering, all right, well, why didn't the team that they were on want to keep them? That's a little bit of a more difficult sell as opposed to – go back to the Jordan Addison situation where he's at Pitt and he wins the Biletnikoff Award, and then he looks around and is like, well, Kenny Pickett's in the NFL. Mark Whipple, my offensive coordinator, he went to Nebraska. I'm going to go to USC and play with Caleb Williams and have a Lincoln Riley-led offense. That makes a lot more sense. So, I think it's a difficult thing, but I still think you got to keep taking those swings in the portal. You just have to on the offensive side of the ball, especially. Look at the Heisman Trophy, man. This is going to be decided probably by 3 guys, all of whom were former transfers, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and Michael Penix Jr., and you have to keep taking those cuts. And I understand Arkansas at the quarterback position, at the running back position, you felt awesome coming into this year, and that's not to say that that they need to do that at every skill position or whatever, because Lord knows they did it at receiver, but you've got to continue to be willing to take those chances because that's where the sport's going, or you got to do unique things in NIL like what Mizzou has with the in-state thing. If you're a high school kid, you can accept NIL money if you're in the state of Missouri, if you're committed to an in-state school. So obviously that helps out Mizzou and the Luther Burden thing and everything. So, look, I think you just got to be creative and you got to be able to adapt or die.
Yeah, speaking of the Arkansas's quarterback in KJ Jefferson, what's the market for him? Because I'd like to think that we're going to go out and get an OC that's going to be more of an RPO, something that fits KJ's style. Is KJ going to go somewhere else that fits his style, or what does the market look like for KJ?
Look, you brought in a pro-style offense. And it didn't work out. Now, did it not work out because the offensive line was just terrible? Yeah, that's probably part of it. But if he's seeking another home because he wants to go play in a pro-style system, to me, I don't really know, because he wants to help himself for the NFL. If that's the decision, I don't know that there is that obvious path where you have great surroundings. Take a DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State. Great situation that he walked into with Jonathan Smith. He had an experienced offensive line. They weren't asking him to do the same things that they were asking him to do at Clemson. Could KJ walk into a situation like that elsewhere? There are not a whole lot of those situations available. So while I love KJ, I will lead the KJ bandwagon forever. I do think that he would have a market, but it's just more so about the lack of those outside opportunities. And you're probably going to be able to hopefully handpick your offensive coordinator if you decide to stay.
Right. That's kind of what it's about. And I just don't know if he was, in on the, we're going to bring in Dan Enos. That happened so quickly because the thing with Kendall Briles at TCU, it was Mississippi State the week before that, and the Enos hiring kind of came very quickly, and it felt like a friendship had a lot to do with that. And I think you're right too. And I also think that, look, I mean, there's the capability of KJ going into the transfer portal, and taking what's been a good career at Arkansas and seeing if he can try to do it somewhere else, like we've seen a lot of quarterbacks do. But that doesn't always mean that you're going to progress the way you want to. Sam Hartman hasn't necessarily progressed. You just brought up Devin Leary. Sometimes that kind of transferring also shows that maybe you're not quite as good as you or the coaches brought you in think you are.
Yeah, I think the spectrum is wide with portal guys. Or you can be Spencer Sanders. Spencer Sanders was a 4-year starter at Oklahoma State, a guy who won a New Year's Six Bowl with them, and he goes to Ole Miss, and everybody, myself included, is like, oh, wow, so that means he's going to beat out Jackson Dart and win that starting job. He ends up not winning the starting job, and he's been holding a clipboard this entire season. So there are just no guarantees once you hit the portal. Look, I love KJ. I think he's been incredibly loyal. I think there are a lot of people outside of Arkansas that forget that he was a Chad Morris recruit, and the loyalty that he showed that program, sticking with things when they brought in Felipe Franks for that year so that he can continue to learn, even though physically, obviously, he was at an SEC level, and you knew that guy could take a hit. But, yeah, I'm fascinated by this next chapter, and honestly, I hope it stays at Arkansas because I'd like to see what he can do with a capable offensive line and a scheme that fits his skill set.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.